Hello, students of HSL 611, and welcome back. This is week 6, so at the end of this week, believe it or not, we will be 3/4 of the way through this course. Whew, it's really hard to believe, isn't it? But we're getting there. We have our last quiz at the end of this week, starting at noon on Friday and going through to almost midnight on Sunday. This will be quiz number 5. Don't forget, we have the final exam on the following weekend at the end of week 7. So this week, we will be covering from the white textbook, chapters 10, 11, and 12. So we can get right into it. Chapter 10 deals with knowledge management, and in years past, we probably would have been more likely to talk about this topical area in terms of information systems, more along the lines of what we would be using with the computer and with the internet and so forth. But now knowledge has merged with the highly technical areas and with the substantive information that is often found in books and quite frankly in the experience of highly trained professionals. In any event, knowledge management is no longer the province of just the librarian or the folks in HR that are involved in training. Now knowledge management permeates every area, especially with the use of higher technology. While knowledge and good information has always been important, it is extremely important in the areas where decisions have to be made. So at the executive level, of course, having a report writing function that is reliable and easy enough to use, that is extremely important. So information systems that have that built in are very good information systems. In the clinical area, particularly in working with the physicians, it is extremely, extremely important that the medical director or other leaders in medical leadership have at their disposal staff that can help provide information that is trustworthy. Having that available is extremely important as well. Otherwise, it cannot be expected that one can assist in behavior modification of medical personnel. What I mean is, when a presentation is made related to any number of goals that the facility may have with their physicians, if one hopes to affect the behavior of the physicians, it would be deadly to come to a meeting and have information that is exposed as being weak or not timely or worse of all, not accurate. Because all it takes is somebody from the audience pointing it out, and the credibility of the quality improvement person or the utilization management person, et cetera, is not credible. So what you need are information systems that are very efficient, that the work can be done quickly, that if there's a monthly staff meeting, for example, that the information is very timely from the last month, whenever that month closed out, so that it's relevant. Again, it has to be accurate. And again, it has to be information that really helps the individual practitioners and then committees of physicians working together making good, sound, evidence-based decisions. Now, Don Berwick, the great physician consultant who does a lot of work with physician groups, once indicated that if you make a mistake with the data and it's pointed out by the physicians one time, that can be corrected, but you better do it quickly and you better make sure it doesn't happen again, because If you come back in the next month and you have that error or other kinds of errors, you've pretty much lost the group of physicians. You've lost your credibility and lost the chances of having good momentum in a wide area of medical projects. Now, the book makes an important point when they talk about the purpose of knowledge management, or KM. The first is that the sources that are in each associate's head, that is understood, that learning is understood. So we need to be able to draw from the various areas. It might be from the business office, it might be from utilization management, it might be from an infection control, it might be from a specialized group of physicians, whatever. That needs to be understood and then pulled together. The second point is the current communications that drive each associate's agenda of task and record their accomplishment. That's important. Number three, the next essential part is the data warehouse. That means, where is all this kept? The protocols, the processes, the performance information, proposals, forecasts, etc., especially important in the quality improvement processes. And then finally, the overall library that used to be represented by books and journals, right? But now, increasingly, this information is kept or found on the internet or the World Wide Web. So having good data sources and then good storage of information is extremely important for knowledge management. One final point, it would behoove a healthcare organization to have statistical consultation available to the process improvement teams that are dealing with all the various opportunities for improvement. Oftentimes variation analysis is an important part of quality improvement, and it's a good, very solid statistical tool that people throughout the organization can appreciate and put to good use. But oftentimes having an internal statistician or purchasing the help of somebody like perhaps who teaches at the local college or junior college, that can be very, very useful. And I find that at the board level, that the use of the scorecard is very much strengthened by the use of variation analysis, and that even includes, and maybe even especially, financial information, as well, of course, the clinical improvement information. Chapter 11 is a cool chapter. I love human resources, and this chapter on human resources management is one of the top chapters in my book. When we're talking about human resources, we are, of course, talking about all the human capital that exists throughout the organization, the associates/employees, including management as well as non-management folks, the wide range of volunteers that can be found throughout the organization, and especially on boards in not-for-profit organizations. Don't forget that they are usually volunteers. And then we have, of course, the clinicians, physicians, and so forth. But for purposes of this chapter, we are probably talking most about the associates/employees. Now, in Chapter 11, they have a nice exhibit talking about the functions of human resources management. And, of course, human resources is a staff function. It permeates all parts of the organization, and they do many different things. Interestingly enough, just a side note, I have known individuals who have worked in human resources and healthcare and then make a transition to other kinds of businesses, including industry. And they've done quite well because the skills that are honed within a healthcare organization can apply very nicely to what is needed in other lines of work also. This is quite different, of course, than people who work in more clinical areas and then would have a much tougher transition to something outside of healthcare. In any event, in healthcare organizations, human resources management includes things like recruitment and retention of employees. And then once you've recruited the individuals, of course, they have to be oriented. There's training, there's diversity and cultural competence work that needs to be done. So obviously there is education that exists at various levels. So oftentimes there are education specialists that exist right within human resources. Oftentimes human resources is extremely busy in developing policies and procedures, job descriptions throughout the entire organization and so forth. That is all part and parcel of the employment function. Now, also in human resources, you have record keeping very often of like safety issues and so forth. It doesn't have to exist in HR, but it often does. And then other kinds of record keeping that relates to the insurance carriers, workers' comp, et cetera, but also anything involving like flex programs or other things related to the health care benefits that employees have. If it's regulatory and involves employees, the odds are human resources has at least a piece of it. Then on top of all that, there are often experts right within HR that get involved in market surveys and continuously maybe working with outside folks, consultants also, to understand compensation, what it takes to be competitive in recruiting new talent and so forth. So benefits design, payroll management, all that kind of gets wrapped up in HR also. Then on top of all that, there's a whole nother specialty area if there are unions involved. So collective bargaining contracts, the negotiation of contracts, the collective bargaining process, and then working with outside legal counsel to provide specialized legal advice on how best to handle a wide range of tricky situations with collective bargaining. All that very often is spearheaded by the HR department. And then finally, under the rubric of continuous improvement of human resources, there's ongoing performance evaluation of associates within the HR area, but then also throughout the organization as a whole. And of course, HR is rather a creative, innovative area when it is working optimally, and this can be a source of a whole lot of opportunities for improvement that can spring right from the HR area. The other important area that rears its ugly head from time to time is when there are layoffs or when the organization is otherwise trying to reduce workforce. My personal preference is by attrition, quite frankly. I've never enjoyed the layoffs that I had been involved with in the past, but when they are necessary, and HR needs to provide leadership and a sense of balance throughout that entire sequence of events. And then let's see, finally, I guess I'd like to say that when HR is working optimally, they are also very active in providing succession planning for executive leadership and middle management leadership, et cetera. And even board transitions also, that they can be very helpful in working out policies and procedures for the executive committee of the board and for the board itself. And finally, for this week, we have Chapter 12, which is Environment of Care Management. Very often, organizations have like a single vice president that have responsibility for this myriad of activities that fall under this area. Think about physical facilities, think about physical plant, and all the things that go on there. Everything from grounds maintenance to materials management function to dietary/food service to sanitation. Think of all signage that may exist throughout the entire organization, the maintenance of grounds, perhaps the security force that exists, and then having monitoring functions such as quality of water, preparing for natural disasters, etc. All these things fall into this environment of care area that we are talking about now in this chapter. For better or worse, the impressions of the public, the impressions of patients and their family members who come to visit, many of the conclusions and perceptions of the entire organization very often hinge upon the good impression that's made by the various departments and services in this area, this environment of care area. I have been a big proponent when I used to run facilities that our dietary area always needed to be top-notch, that we could provide food service at a level that rivaled the best caterers and the best restaurants in our geographic area, and in fact used to really take a great deal of satisfaction when I heard that people were really talking up places that I used to work at in terms of how good the food service was. In places that I've worked, we've even had various service clubs that came to our facilities, or even had marriage or wedding ceremonies and so forth right in our dining area because it was so classy and meant to be part of the social fabric and a marketing tool for everything else that we did in the organization. Likewise, be careful with how we use volunteers, particularly when people come in off the street and they go in the lobby. If the volunteers are there at the reception desk and they're not very well trained, or there's a risk that from time to time individuals without adequate training are there, or who otherwise don't exhibit the spirit of customer friendliness, that can be a big mistake. Again, people draw conclusions by these initial contacts and these impressions. So keep that in mind. Of course, keeping the facility neat and litter-free, it goes without saying. I even enjoyed making sure that people kept things off the walls and so forth. It just doesn't look professional. We're always trying to provide optimal service. We can't forget that the housekeepers and the maintenance folks, they all need to be trained in such a way that they see the various departments and the employees in various departments as customers of theirs. Because if there is in-house fighting, things can become dysfunctional, and then ultimately the image of the organization suffers, communication can suffer, and ultimately the patients who we're all trying to provide optimal service to, they suffer also because of these dysfunctionalities. All this comes together. All this needs to be coordinated, and sensitivity training for these issues is extremely important. So having the right person serving in executive leadership over all these areas is extremely, extremely important. Okay, well, I hope these items that I just talked about make sense to you. I hope you enjoy reading the chapters. I know they can be rather technical and dry at some places, so I would invite you to think about some of the description that I gave you, and perhaps with the additional thoughts that I have provided, I can make it more real. I can help make it, with maybe more flesh on the bones there. So that pretty much handles it for week 6. We are now at the final 1/4 of the course. Again, we have the final exam next week, and I would invite you to turn in your term paper early if it's possible at all for you to do that. Otherwise, don't forget, in week 8 on Thursday, that is the last day that you have by midnight to turn in your paper. Thank you very much, and I look forward to talking to you next week.